Welcome back to Sue Cheap Pro, Lavatory Carrier Assembly Training Video Part 2. I'm your host, Wild Bill Westrick, the world's greatest plumber, and today we're going to talk about how to install this sink on this carrier. In our last video, we put the carrier together. We mounted the legs, we mounted the truss rod, we mounted the rough end arms. We've got it all ready. This is the finished wall for purposes of training. Consider this the drywall or the tile or the painted wall, but it's the finished surface. This is the arm that we put together last time. This is the sink you're going to install. So we have referenced the cut sheet. And up to this point, you've taken all the measurements off the cut sheet to get the spread proper here and the height proper here. So now we're done with this. You've got the actual sink in your hand. So you can see on the back of the sink, there's a series of holes. This is a carrier style wall hung concealed arm lavatory. Arm number one, arm number two. That's where these go. The arm will be sticking out of the sleeve, similar to this right here. Now what we need to line up is these three holes with these three screws on the carrier arm. So it's pretty simple. You don't need any paperwork for this. You just need a tape measure and a marker. We'll measure from the back of the sink to the last hole is 16 inches. The other side of the sink is going to be the exact same way. We can assume these holes are the same, but always check them because it's sand cast and it could be off a 1/4 inch and you want to be as accurate as possible. So 16 inches is the critical dimension to the farthest out leveling screw, which is this one right here. So we've taken, this is the arm that we've already got preset for this. We're going to put it in the hole and measure from the finished wall to 16 inches to the far outermost leveling screw, which is this leveling screw here. So for rough end purposes, take it out to the end of the arm, tighten the screw, hold this in place. This is the wedge that locks the arm in place. It's the locking device. This other screw is the leveling screw that's closest to the wall. So we have leveling screws and we have a locking device. The locking device wants to be screwed all the way in so it doesn't move. It doesn't have to be tight. We just don't want it to turn sideways. If it turns sideways, when you slide it through the hole in the back of the sink, it gets stuck and you're going to be fighting it the whole way. So turn it straight, snug it down, and that's it. We've got the outermost leveling screw set at 16 inches. Take the Allen wrench and snug down the Allen bolts. There's 2 of them. Once again, these don't have to be super tight. If the arm moves around a little bit, that's okay. You want the arm to move around a little bit because as it slides through the holes in the back of the sink, you might want it to guide around a little bit. If it's rock solid, it could get stuck in there. Same thing for the second arm. We measure out to 16 inches to the outermost leveling screw. Take the Allen wrench and lock it into place. This is really all that's required on this. Just snug it down. As you can see, it moves around a little bit on this side too, and that's good. So we know we're good on the outermost leveling screw. The locking screw. It goes at 9 3/4. So measure over here. This one is set at 9 3/4. This one is set at 9 3/4. Also on a side note, if these turn a little bit, that's okay. As long as they're screwed in to where you know they're in there all the way, they're not going to fall out. Loose is okay. Final hole, 4 inches. We check our screw, 4 inches. All right, this one's not set. This one is at 5. So I need to make an adjustment. Loosen the screw, move the jacking screw until it is where you want it. Hold it in place and tighten it back down. Make sure all these are tight. You don't want them to fall out while the sink's going together. and set them at about halfway. So the screw is a little more than protruding from the bottom of the arm in the back here. And we're good. Now we should be able to slide it on. One last thing to double check is what your center to center. Center to center here is 16 3/4. What do we have on the back of these? Center to center on the back of these is 16 1/2. That's close enough. Take the sink, slide it over the arms, and slowly work it over the bolts until it's back to the wall. Our finished product wants to be parallel to the wall out here. You can't put a level on this because it's China. You can't put a level on this because it's China. But you can stand back like this and put the eyeball level on it. And the farther back you get, the more view you're gonna have. Because when your customers walk into the room, they're not gonna have a level, but they're gonna be looking at the floor and the sinks and all the sinks compared to each other. So we want them to all be the same. So if one is tilted to the left or to the right a little bit, split the difference. If it's one sink, just make sure it's level. Okay, our sink is level. We get on our backs, we find that jacking screw, and we turn it until the sink raises or lowers this way to get this surface here parallel to each other and as tight as possible. And I'd say we're in pretty good shape where it sits right now. The last thing we got to do is lock the sink into place. The center screw here unthreads and turns backwards to lower the plate that pushes against the china inside the sink. So as this screw goes that way, this distance gets wider and it wedges against the bottom of the sink, and that's what holds it in place. So I will get underneath and find this screw hole and run it down backwards until I feel it touch the china, and then give it about 1/4 of a turn and stop. Remember, china's not flexible. The screw is not very flexible. The cast iron arm is not very flexible. My back's not really very flexible anymore, but we got it. That side's tight, and then you do the exact same thing on the other side. You find the screw, turn it backwards. It will turn 10, 15 times until it engages against the china on the inside of the sink. Once you feel it engage, it will stop turning. Give it about 1/2 turn to snug it down, and that's it. We are done. So part 2 was how to install the sink. Take your arms, double check, make sure all the hardware is with the arm, make sure the hardware is in the correct place. Double check your dimensions of the width against the dimensions of the sink. Mark the jacking screws, the leveling screws on the bottom of the sink in relationship to the arm. Align those in the right place. Slide it on, snug it down, set your faucet, set your drain, and wrap it up and move on to the next one. Thanks for watching Sioux Chief Pro Carrier Installation Part 2. See you next time.